Welcome to Paddlecast with Betsy
and Billy. On Paddlecast, we talk to and about paddlers who are pushing limits, paddlers who are pushing their own limits, and pushing limits of paddle sports.
So last time we spoke, you were heading out to South Africa to take part in the Fish River Canoe Marathon first, and then the Surfski World Championships in Durban. How was your trip?
Well, Betsy, it wasn't great, actually. I dislocated my shoulder about 2 kilometers into the fish, and luckily we did manage to pop it back in. We did get a finish, but it was a ropey finish, and it did rule me out of Surfski Worlds. But that did mean I got to spend more time helping out the British paddlers, meeting new people. So I drove the team minibus. I fixed the clasp on a set of paddles for a junior athlete minutes before the racing started. And I made sure people rehydrated with frosty Milos, even earning myself the nickname Team Daddy.
I still can't believe that you finished the fish with a dislocated shoulder.
It was back in by that point.
Yeah. It was really disappointing for you to miss the actual Surfski World Championship racing. It is tough, but I am glad that it was still a good trip. And a little bit selfishly, I was very appreciative that it meant you got to, hang out on the beach and take really cool footage of the starts and the finishes. And I was able to, share a lot of that great footage on Paddle Daily, which hopefully some of our listeners have seen on social media. And the racing was so good. Like, it did feel, watching it was almost as good as actually racing.
Watching the racing was really good. Being at the start and then seeing the field through the shore break at the end was very exciting, but I didn't get to see what happened in the middle of the race. Luckily for us, we have Kira Bester, Rosie Edwards, Cory Hill, Pierre Vilella, and Sam Mocke to talk us through their races.
So let's start with Kira and Rosie. And spoiler alert, Kira did successfully defend her world championship title. She is now the second woman ever to have 2 world titles. She's done this by the age of 23. Really impressive. And she finished about 20 seconds ahead of Danielle Richards. And Britain's own Rosie Edwards had the best result of her career, where she won gold in the under 23 category and finished in 3rd place overall, which was just really, really incredible. So here we go. In their own words, here are Kira Bester and Rosie Edwards telling you all about their races.
The gun went off and we all ran in. Danny ran in on the right-hand side, and she had a really, really good start. I didn't have the best start, but I was kind of in the pack.
I knew that on the start that I wanted to get a good start, get away clean, because on the doubles the day before, I was racing with Terry and we didn't have the greatest start. We people all around us and then swam, so that was my main goal for the Sunday, to get on that. So I turned myself kind of in the middle, and then I knew some of the stronger girls were over to the right, and then there's also some others around me.
Georgia Singe also had a good start, and she was right next to me. And as we started paddling, I shouted at her to cut across so that she would go sit on Danny's wave.
But I think my life-saving helped at the start. I just kind of ran and went for it and then got on, and I was away clean and saw the other girls over to the right. So I kind of pulled off over onto their slip, which was nice, made it easy for me. I also by myself.
We cut across, and then I was on first wave, Danny was pulling, and Georgia went onto diamond. And then basically Danny just pulled from the start to the first turning buoy, and he managed to put a little bit of a gap in between the 3 of us to the rest of the field. And then from there, Danny turned to the right, going out towards the deeper ocean, and I just ended up actually cutting it a little bit shallower and following the primary swell.
The good paddlers, the really good guys, I'd already be starting to catching these runs and then surfing them right, catching them and then surfing them right.
So, yeah, I could see Danny from far away, not like clearly, but I could also see the boat that was following her. So I always kind of knew where she was. And yeah, it was a proper dice from DUC to Umhlanga.
Yeah, then we carried on going out towards the buoy. Then passing that, Kieran went very inshore. Danielle kind of went ahead of me, and then Michelle went right offshore. And then Georgia just in front of me. I just kept going like that between there and the buoy at Umhlanga. Then, yes, we went that order. I think I passed the can around 5th overall, just behind Georgia there.
And there must be Rosie Edwards coming 4th, I think. It looks like, yeah, that's Rosie Edwards catching a nice little run there.
I managed to get to Umhlanga first, and at that point I was about 50 meters ahead of Danny. I couldn't see any other athletes other than Danny, so I was pretty comfortable, and the body still felt quite good.
And there's the first of the...
there's the first now, you see, there we go.
Can. That could be the leading boat of Kira Bester.
And then we kept going towards Westbrook, where I was just chasing them, and then dropped my call off, and then chasing them, Michelle and Georgia. And then about 4Ks to go, we passed Michelle, and then about 1K to go past Georgia.
From Umhlanga to Westbrook, we actually ended up hugging the coast quite tightly. And Danny, I think, just followed my line, and then was probably just hoping to capitalize on any mistake I would make. I didn't actually make many mistakes. And then at Westbrook, I went around the buoy. She was still about 50 meters behind me. I had this first wave come through, and that wave was a bit too big, so I pulled off it, going sideways.
Beautifully done. Beautifully done.
I decided to kind of just slow down a bit and rather wait and make sure that there wasn't a massive set coming through that was going to work me on the inside. And then once I had seen that it was pretty much clear and a little wave came through, I caught it, and then just before the shore break, put my leg out and, yeah, prevented myself from nosediving, and then just paddled up to the shore and then ran up.
She's home.
Kira can't get, watch this. This shore break is mean. She's home and dry. She's
What
done it.
an emotional
That's an
moment.
incredible effort.
When I got over that line and I knew that I'd won, it was like I did it, and I did it for the people that really were there for me from the get-go, and I did it for people like my coach. And yeah, it was just this massive weight that had been lifted from my shoulders.
And that's thank you, Pete. That's
Kira,
the
that is for
That's the
Pete.
acknowledgement for Pete.
Points to
4Ks to go, we passed Michelle, and then about 1K to go past Georgia. Turned the can and just paddled hard in. I was very tired at that point, was a bit all over the place, but I knew just not the greatest place to mess up, especially with that Shorey and the batch break.
Rosie, she was on one of those boats. Was she on one? I'm not too sure.
British lady doing fantastic. I think
Rosie
fourth
Edwards.
place.
That's going to be a tricky get out the
Third
boat.
place.
Rosie
Rosie
Edwards, it
Edwards,
is indeed.
look at it.
I just kind of went for it and got in and was shocked. Didn't believe it when I kind of thought I was in that position, but then when Brad announced it on the speaker, I was like, yeah, mind blown.
Yes, from the UK, United Kingdom and Ireland. Well
Yeah.
done.
What a race. We are going to share more from Kira and Rosie a bit later, but I think that was a great recap of how things played out. Is there anything missing?
Well, I think we have to talk about the elephant in the room, and that's the Shorey. It might not have been a big deal for Kira and Rosie, but it was a big deal for a lot of paddlers.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think probably every person listening to this Paddlecast episode in good company with, I think, possibly hundreds of thousands of other people around the world have seen these videos of the epic shore break in Durban. It went about as viral as paddling videos go.
Yeah, it's a new one for me, being sort of relatively new to Surfski, and I knew roughly what to expect after talking to Kira before the race, but I was still impressed by the size and the intensity of it, especially how big the backline got on doubles day, sort of soon after the first paddlers started finishing.
Yeah. There has been some conversation about, the choices to have that beach finish, especially, with the possibility of maybe doing a finish on the water, finishing at a buoy. And they did run the doubles race on the Saturday, right? When that shore break was much bigger. And as you say, it seemed to even get bigger after some of the first few crews had finished. And then they ran the singles race on the Sunday. The downside of that was, of course, it meant some of the top paddlers in the singles opted not to race the doubles, which was a bit of a miss on the Saturday. But it did, from a safety standpoint, seem to work well and make a lot of sense to have the doubles on the bigger day and the singles on the slightly smaller day. But yeah, even so, there were definitely some casualties in the form of snapped skis. But to some extent, is this just a part of ocean racing?
Yeah, I think it fully is. And it's a big part of how the sport developed with surf life saving. If someone is drowning on the back line, how do you go and get them and bring them back to shore? I think, we see so many paddlers, certainly in Britain, coming from, the marathon and downriver racing into Surfski, and they don't deal with this sort of stuff. Whereas, our guys that are coming from a life-saving sort of side, they learn this as a core skill. And yeah, it does take a lot of skill. But, we've got juniors that were doing that really well. We had Tim Garnicott-Porter out there from the UK. He has come to Surfski, really recently, like in the last year. Very strong marathon paddler. He'd never seen a shore break like this, but he had a bit of coaching and he studied some videos and he absolutely nailed it. I was gutted not to be able to film him in. But yeah, he learned it very quickly. So yes, it's really tricky and even harder if you've never done it before, but it's totally possible for anyone, life-saving background or not. You learn to do it. I'm going to make sure I learn to do it. And it's part of racing.
Yeah, definitely. And, as you say, with so many paddlers coming over from marathon and downriver into Surfski, which is amazing. And we love to see that and we encourage it. And I think we both fall into that category as well. It's let's keep that pipeline up, but just sort of add that skill to the toolbox. I think it didn't end up affecting the top results in the women's field so much, that shore break at the finish. But we did see a couple of sort of moments or incidents in the doubles race and the men's race where boats that navigated the shore break better actually moved up a placing. So it does show that it's not just about finishing with your boat intact, that it can make a difference to your race. We saw in the doubles race that the Spanish crew of Walter Buzon and Judith Vergas, they were in third place coming into the finish. They ended up swimming in the shore break. And even though they had a solid lead with that third place position, it just took them a little while to get in. And I mean, the shore break was bad enough that the media boat capsized here, which was well worth watching. That's how bad the shore break was. So it did give the opportunity then for the crew who was in fourth place until that moment, which was Jenna Nisbet and Hamish Lovemore, to kind of take a smoother course through that shore break and snag the third place position. So it definitely makes a difference. And in the men's race too, for fourth place, it looked like Gordon Harbrecht, the champion from last year, was coming in, sort of veered off to the side a little bit in the shore break. It didn't lose a ton of time, really, but it was close enough at this point that it was enough time where Nikki Naughton was able to come in and take that fourth position.
Yeah, I spoke to Gordon at the after party and he said, yeah, we just don't have it in the Baltic. You don't get that.
Yeah, it's tough. You got to find a good place to practice, don't you?
For sure.
So with that, let's talk about the men's race. Thanks to today's sponsor, Carbonology UK. Carbonology is one of the world's leading surfski brands. It is the brand of choice for the now two-time world champion, Kira Bester. She has won both of her world titles racing the Carbonology Flash X LV, the low volume ski. Kira and Carbonology actually got a bit of a shout out during the Durban live stream from Oscar Chalupsky.
Yeah, it's Kira on a Carbonology made in South Africa, winning in South Africa, and she's powering away.
There were plenty of Carbonologies out on the water in Durban with top results, both in the singles and doubles races. And Billy, of course, very disappointingly, you did not get to race in Durban, but you are very familiar with the Carbonology range.
Yeah, my first ski was a Zest. It's more of an intermediate model. But for someone like me coming from Marathon, who was very comfortable in a K1, but less experienced on the ski, it was the perfect introduction for me. I've also spent a lot of time in their doubles range, as well as the triple. And I've broken the Hailing Island circumnavigation record twice in Carbonology skis. First in the Zest double with Giles Hudson, and then in the Flash X double with Andrew Burkett.
Carbonology produces a great variety of options, not just for world champions and elite paddlers, but also for beginner and intermediate paddlers and even for kids. So head on over to carbonologysport.co.uk to check out their skis and other equipment from paddles and PFDs to funky pants. You can contact Alan Hunter at carbonologysport.co.uk to learn more. Back to the show.
Yeah, this was another great race. It was Cory Hill who managed to take his 4th world title, which is hugely impressive. I think with the nature of ocean racing, no one is guaranteed a win, even when they're in top form. But when someone starts to stack up the wins like Cory has, they start standing out. He had to beat off a strong field as well. Some huge names on that start list, including, in a bit of a surprise for many people, including the commentary team, Pierre Vilella of France, who finished second, and Bernardo Pereira from Portugal, who was also the first under-23 athlete, taking 3rd overall. No South Africans on the overall podium, but 2 Europeans. So we are lucky again to have here 4-time world champion Cory Hill and the vice world champion Pierre Vilella here to tell us how their races went in their own words.
Yeah, look, as far as the race, it was 34 kilometres. So I knew it was going to be quite a grind, regardless of the swell. I'd done Molokai back in May, which is 50 kilometres, and even that with really good winds, it's still a grind. So even you get to the end and you've really got to make sure that you're able to attack when you need to attack, and you've really got to be able to, I guess, in a way, execute when it needs to be executed. So off the start, I was more than happy to just get in my boat, be clean, and get to the first can in about 20th or so. I wasn't too phased. I just wanted to get there and be in touch.
I had a great start. My goal was to start as fast as possible at the first meters to get some space around me and to be able to paddle freely. I reached the first buoy with Oscar Jones, and then a few minutes later I took the lead in the race. I didn't think it would go so well at the beginning of the race, so I was a bit surprised to lead the race. And there I told myself that as long no one catch me up, I have to manage my efforts and trust myself and do the exact same race I would have done if I was 5 or 10th.
Turn the can into some runs, and it was more or less just pretend it's a warm-up, I guess, up until that halfway mark. So obviously we're going much harder than that warm-up pace, but just trying to go, like, if there's runs that you don't think that you can get, just let them go. You want to be fresh at halfway. And that first 17 kilometres, so the first hour of the race, it was more or less Bernardo, Pierre, Gordon, Nicky Naughton, Sam Mocke, Uli, Mark Keeling. So they're the people that I could see all around me in front of me. And I was more than happy just to sort of sit back and monitor them. Got to the halfway mark in 5th. So at that point, the 4 in front of me, from memory, it was Gordon, Pierre, Bernardo, and Sam Mocke.
So confirmation then, as it stands right now, Pierre Vilella, David Mocke at the front, and Uli Hart.
And then I led the race almost 15 kilometers to all the way to the buoy at Umhlanga. There, the wind dropped a bit, the waves were a little bit different, and I fell back from the first to the sixth positions in maybe 5 minutes. And then it took me 3 or 4 kilometers to adapt to the conditions. And after this, I've been able to catch up with the front and Cory again.
So as I rounded that buoy, I sort of came up on the inside of them, but knew that I wanted to head straight back out to sea. All week I was saying I think it looked like it was my first time to South Africa, but to me it just looked like the course was a reverse of the West Coast Downwinder in Perth, which I've done quite well at in the past. So I just thought, head out to sea and chase the runs back home. So if you do the skillful thing out to sea, then you pay dividends the rest of the way in.
After that, little by little, Cory began to pull ahead.
So from that halfway mark, it was the 5 of us that I could see. Uli had pushed up a little bit, and he was on the inside. He chased Gordon a little bit more so. So on the outside, it was Nicky Naughton, who I didn't really see too much in the race. Gordon on the inside with Uli, Pierre, myself, and Bernardo on the outside. And it just happened quite naturally, I guess. As soon as I did get to that halfway marker, I pushed out to sea, got a couple of really good runs. It sort of lined up nicely for me and hit the lead. And I think that's where the live stream started to show that I was in the front. Ironically, from there, it was, 2 Ks after that mark, the wind just died down a little bit. The boat had come in to film me, and that's when you sort of see I was nodding at the film crew. I was actually telling it to bugger off in more or less words, just because I could see when I looked over my shoulder that it looked like it was producing some nice runs for the opposition. So I sort of dropped my paddle at that stage a little bit and just let the field come up to me to just reassess and go, if it's going to be a flat run from here, I don't want them working together behind me to get up to me right by the end, essentially, and beat me in a close finish. That's not what I was there for. So had a little chat to Bernardo and Pierre and sort of said, what do we think about the inside outside line and what do we think about this boat sort of thing. Had a little chat to Bernardo, and then the wind just pushed again. And as soon as that happened, I just sort of put my head down and attacked and just thought, if I just don't miss a run from here, and I felt fantastic, right? Like I just felt like everything was lining up. I felt very clear. The clarity in my head was like, I just felt good, like very fresh. So I think by tricking myself that first half of the race to sort of say, we're not having a crack just yet, it played into my favour to sort of go, you're so fresh right now. We've only got 10 Ks ahead of us. We're racing for 10 Ks. It's really only 35 minutes at that pace. Rather than looking at it like a 2-hour race, I sort of broke it down quite nicely. And in my head, it was much more easy and bite-sized. So at that stage, that last 10 kilometres is where I sort of did the damage.
After that, little by little, Cory began to pull ahead. And at the same time, Bernardo was chasing me. I just gave my maximum to stay in front of Bernardo and to try to close the growing gap between Cory and me. And in the end, I managed to hold this position until the finish line.
Got to that last turning buoy and it was just like, I think I've won it from here. You can't see, we're passing through the girls, which is really frustrating. So I just didn't know whether I was leading or if there was people that have come up the inside or way outside, that sort of thing. But I thought it would have been hard to beat at that stage. But that's where the footage you see at the end, you sort of see me going up to the commentator and saying, is that a win? And the same thing actually happened in Perth a couple of years ago, where I crossed the line, went up to my wife and said, how'd I go? And she said, well done. And I went, well done, good, well done, bad, well done, good. And I went, yeah, but give me a number, 1, 2, 3, what's good? Because good in her eyes, she should be proud of me regardless. So from there, I just was really happy with how it executed. Was able to look around and go, okay, I've put a little bit of time on them in that last 10Ks. And really, I was just happy with the product. So quite often I talk about the process and the product and that sort of thing. So the process for myself is the training, and the product is the actual race itself. And I've been lucky or fortunate in the last couple of years to actually go, the product's been fantastic.
Cory Hill, world champion in Tahiti
Look how good that
2015.
is. Look how
Did it
Cory
again in
comes
Hong
in.
Kong in 2017.
Powers up.
Did it in Perth in 2023. And for the fourth time, he's going to be the world champion. And he's done it in Durban in 2025. Stopping to chat to the commentator as he gets to the beach finish. Claims it on the line. The cream has come to the top in magnificent downwind conditions here.
In the end, I managed to hold this position until the finish line, but I wasn't sure of my result. I thought that maybe some people that I couldn't have seen with the big swell could have overtaken me. And finally, I heard that I was second, so I was very happy.
Second place overall.
Pierre Vilella. Pierre
Yes,
Vilella,
that
the
is second
Frenchman.
place
gets
to, was
second.
that Pierre?
That was really cool to hear from Cory and Pierre. It was so exciting watching that race. And there were just these moments of surprise that happened watching the live stream. I think the first one was when everyone realized that the boat at the front of the men's race was not Gordon Harbrecht, because he and Pierre have the same boat, but it was actually Pierre Vilella. That was really cool. And then the other moment too was seeing Cory, overtake so much of the field late in the race. And, as he said, like that was his race plan, which is pretty cool to be able to say, I know that I don't need to be leading in the first half of the race. I just need to be in the mix and I can, take it out from there. So really cool to hear from both of them in their own words, and just a great race to watch. But you were there at the start and the finish. Looking at your footage from that start, I was a little surprised that you didn't get run over.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It was the largest start line ever at a world championship with 416 men on the start line. I was standing a few meters into the sea filming and I was just swamped. I'd done the same for the doubles and the women's start, but I'd never had so many men coming in my direction. It was a bit overwhelming.
It looked wild, but really cool. I mean, to have so many boats. I am very glad that you did not get run over there.
Yeah, I also saw the starter and the two guys starting the race. They looked pretty overwhelmed as well in one of the videos.
Yeah, I can imagine. That would be a cool job. It'd be a great job for 416 boats. We have seen a lot of chatter and participated in this too about this being the biggest Surfski start line at a World Championships ever with those 416 men. But I did, want to acknowledge that it is not actually, even though it was the largest at the event, so it was the largest event overall by entries, and it was the largest men's field and the largest start line ever. We have had more women on the start line previously, and that was in Perth, Australia in 2023. And so this year we only had 74 starters in Durban compared to 113 in Perth. But a majority of those in Perth were from Australia. I think it's probably related to Australia having such a strong surf lifesaving culture, which helped them get those numbers up so high. But I am hoping that we see a few more than that kind of 70, 75 range in the women's field in Villajoyosa next year.
Yeah, definitely. There were 70 entries in the women's field at the Spanish National Championships this year. So that bodes really well for next year's Worlds. I think that leads us nicely into one of your standout paddlers that you'd like to talk about.
Yes, you're right. So we've already talked a little bit about how it was a big year for Europe. Obviously, last year with Gordon Harbrecht from Germany winning the overall title was kind of like the year maybe that Europe was sort of such a big part of the scene. This year, even if it wasn't Europeans at the top of the podium in the singles races, it was still like a huge, huge year for European Surfski, just taking up so many podium spots. And one of those was in the junior girls race from Andrea Jimenez of Spain. I think she's only 16 years old, so really young for that junior category. She races marathon as well. And she raced K2 at the European Championships. And honestly, she was not on my radar before this event, but taking out that junior girls gold medal against tough competition, including Ellen Stridham from South Africa, who won the doubles race the day before and finished only seconds behind Andrea. I am super impressed. I will definitely be keeping an eye on her. And she and Ellen, their finishing time, it was right around the 2:41 mark, which was actually fast enough to have placed 8th in the under 23 race and 9th in the senior women's race. So it's not just about, being on top of that junior girls field. It's showing that they are really well on their way to competing at those higher levels of racing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, especially with the world champs being in Villajoyosa next year, which I think is home turf for Andrea Jimenez. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see how she goes.
Yeah, definitely.
Was there a young paddler who you wanted to spotlight as a standout?
Yeah, there's been a couple that in the last, few weeks, but certainly in Durban, really stood out to me. But one in particular was Sam Mocke. He successfully defended his title from last year. He is only 16 years old and he will still be a junior next year. He may well become the first junior to have 3 world titles under his name. So he's part of the Mocke dynasty. He's had some really impressive results recently, including teaming up with the other paddler I'd like to mention, Matt Kotzer. Him and Sam and Matt finished 7th at the Breda River Canoe Marathon a few weeks ago. They were right behind Kenny Rice and Mark Keeling. And they actually won one of the warm-up races too, ahead of his dad, David. So the other paddler there that I wanted to mention was Matt Kotzer. He is absolutely smashing it down there in Cape Town, and he did it also in Durban. I mentioned him in our preview episode. Matt had a great race as well. He finished 2nd fastest under 23 paddler behind Bernardo Pereira. And I think he still has a couple of years left in the U23s. So Bernardo has 1 more year left too. So that's like such a strong under 23 field. These guys could be at the top for years.
It really is. Yeah. To see the strength in the junior and under 23 fields that we are seeing right now, it's just really exciting. And especially coming from, both South Africa as well as Europe, like having a bit of that. And I'm sure in Australia and New Zealand too, I think maybe not as many of them came out to South Africa because it's a long way for them. But really, really exciting for where the sport's headed.
Yeah, it's pretty promising, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think, of course, we've given our shout outs here for sort of the junior and under 23 paddlers, and we've mentioned them already, but we've got to say, standouts in terms of paddlers who just really exceeded our expectations, everyone else's expectations, and even their own expectations. It's really Rosie and Pierre are probably the 2 biggest standouts there. Bernardo Pereira too, I think, to be under 23, to come in and take that 3rd place overall finish in a very, very competitive men's field. Yeah, apparently he has learned a bit from Oscar Chalipsky, which Oscar was very eager to remind everyone of several times on the live stream commentary, but is clearly not hurting him because, he's going really well and definitely seems to be a big part of the future of Surfski.
Yeah, definitely. Do there's going to be a lot of people here with individuals that they were all really proud of. And I would imagine nearly everyone will have a couple of juniors in their sort of group that they're really proud of. Like in marathon racing, many other races, like the juniors don't race the full senior distance. And we had seniors complaining about 34 kilometers, and the juniors just got on and did it. You know, they all had to do the same. You know, they were out on the water, you know, longer because they are smaller, they are slower, and they just got on and did it. And so, yeah, definitely, like some of those British juniors, I won't mention them all, but like they just got on and did it. I'm really proud of them. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in a similar sort of situation to me there thinking of juniors in their teams.
So let's hear a bit now from some of those top paddlers, starting with our two-time world champion at only 23 years old. Here is our chat with Kira Bester. Kira, how much did you have left in the tank at the end of your race? How hard did you have to fight for this win?
It was definitely a hard race. I think any paddle that exceeds the general 24 mark becomes a bit more challenging, just because you have to pace yourself a bit better. You have to be more considerate with your energy and how you use it. So, yeah, it was definitely not easy by no means. And Danny's such a top athlete. It's never easy racing her. And yeah, like I would say I did have some energy left, but I was probably going at about 80% max, like of all my energy being exerted. So yeah, I reckon I could have done another 10Ks before I would have been cooked. So yeah, whatever that means to you.
What did it feel like to be able to not only take your second world title in a row, but also to beat Danny, Danielle, D-Mac, who you have looked up to for so long?
Yeah, I would say the biggest feeling I had was a sense of relief. I'd put a lot of pressure on myself to achieve it because I wasn't just doing it for myself. And the mass of the fact is I probably wasn't doing it for myself at all. When I got over that line and I knew that I'd won, it was like I did it, and I did it for the people that really were there for me from the get-go, and I did it for people like my coach. And yeah, it was just this massive weight that had been lifted from my shoulders. And then on the part two of that question, yeah, it's awesome being able to race Danny. She's a flippin' amazing athlete. She's really, really strong, and I really have been looking up to her for a very long time. So yeah, it's always amazing being able to race her. It's amazing just being able to race top athletes. I really, really enjoy racing the best of the bets because it just makes the results so much more credible. But it's not really about beating her. It's more just having done it and having done it in the situation that I am in.
I can't believe Kira had so much left in the tank at the end. To be fair, I think everyone does measure something like that a little bit differently. It's very personal, you know, how you think about that energy expenditure. But I do think it says to me just how incredibly good Kira is and how high her ceiling is.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, she could have had 10 more K, at the same intensity, I suppose. But, you know, I wonder how much more D-Mac had in her. You know, they were obviously both pushing. D-Mac wouldn't have wanted second. So, you know, she was going as hard as she could. You know, if she'd have started coming back, did Kira have anything more? Who knows? That's what next year's for.
Yes, definitely. I hope to see many, many more head-to-head matchups between them because that was good. And I also think it's worth, you know, Kira, of course, has said it in her own words, but just acknowledging that she won this world championship title, not so much for herself, but more for her coach, Pete Cole, who passed away in July, and for the people around her supporting her. And, you know, she told us before the event that she has been leaning really hard into her training and she still maybe has some work to do to find the right balance between sort of training and life, which is tough. It's tough for anyone, let alone a 23-year-old two-time world champion. But she's got a long career ahead of her, and I hope she's able to kind of take a bit of a breather and find the right balance, especially with so many exciting races coming up for her over the next couple of months, and feel like she's just paddling for herself again. I also asked Kira, who impressed her the most in Durban, and who might she be looking out for in the future? And she said Rosie Edwards.
Yep, and that's who we've got next. So here's Rosie Edwards. Rosie, you've been paddling really well, but when we spoke post-race, you told me that this was beyond even your reach goal. What do you think made the difference?
Yeah, so it's actually beyond my expectations completely. I've only ever got European medals before. I got a silver back when I was a junior, and then a third last year. So I kind of worked it out, and I was like, if I have the most amazing world's race this year, and then someone doesn't have the best, I can potentially get a third in the under 23, and that's what I worked out. And I was like, that's a push, and that was my goal, and I really wanted that. But when we were paddling, and I kind of looked around where I was, and like, wow, okay, I'm here. But what I think made the difference is, over the past few years, I have spent quite a bit of time in Cape Town training there, but then I went 3 weeks before Worlds this year, and I spent it down there training with them twice a day, and then on Sundays we do 30Ks, and just we were doing a lot of mileage and a lot of downwinds, which is good because I didn't do them as often back home. So yeah, that was really cool, and I think that's what really pushed it. And then in a few days I went and watched fish, so it was kind of recovery, let my body rest then, and then did doubles, which ideally isn't great to do the day before. I mean, I have the 34K race, but I was like, might as well. So it was a good warm-up.
Where are you headed next? And what are some of your goals for the next few months and into next year?
So this weekend I'm heading back down to East London for the Pete Marlin race. I'm racing the singles and the doubles. Doubles with Chloe Bennett, which is really exciting because there's a good field of strong women lined up, so it'll be a good race. And then a week or so back down in Cape Town, training with the Orca squad. And then following that is Reunion. I'll be heading up there, I think it's about 6 or 5 days of racing. Stunning place I've never been, but I've heard some really good things. Then Cape Point in December, so that's the big one. Gonna get some miles in before that, and yeah, hopefully do well. And finally the big one is Europeans. So next year's a Europeans year in August. It'll be in France, and that's the big goal of mine. I really want to do well there. So lots of mileage, lots of training between now and then, but we'll see, and hopefully I can get another title.
I think Rosie's hugely exciting, not just on the world stage, but particularly for UK paddling. UK paddling hasn't had a result like this, I believe, ever. Certainly not for a long time. And, it could be really exciting. She's going to be showing those juniors what's possible on the world stage. We've talked to other people on the podcast, and having that sort of person to look up to in your sport, knowing that you can reach the top, is hugely helpful.
It really is.
So I'm very excited.
Well, let's move on to the men next. Now we have Pierre Vilella. We have talked about Pierre briefly on Paddlecast a few times, and I think it's fair to say that we expected him to be a likely top 10 finish and probably a top 5 contender in Durban, but his silver medal exceeded almost everyone's expectations, even his own.
Yeah, looking back with hindsight, it really does make sense. Like, all his results were sort of on an upward trajectory. If you look at the French nationals, which I don't think we covered, but I had a friend there and we did look at the results, he was going really well. So it's not surprising with hindsight, but yeah, I don't think we certainly didn't expect a second, did we?
Yeah. I mean, he has certainly had some impressive results, and I think I had mentioned this in our preview, but I was really impressed watching him in marathon, the French Marathon Nationals you're talking about here, but he was also in Hungary at the Marathon World Championships. He only raced the short course there, and I was really impressed. I mean, it's hard to be at that top level both in marathon and surfski, but it does translate well. So it not as shocking as maybe it felt to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So here is our conversation with Pierre. Pierre, a lot of people were surprised to see you finish second behind Cory Hill and ahead of some seriously big names in surfski. But looking at your results from the last couple of years in surfski and in marathon, you have been working up towards a result like this. Tell us a bit about your journey to this result.
I'm still surprised to be vice world champion, and I think there are many things that have helped me to reach this good result. The first thing maybe is I think the consistency of my training. I've been training very regularly for several years now, and I love training, so it's not a problem for me to make it a priority. And I think I progressed a little bit every year with that, focusing on my work on some points that I have to improve and that I've identified by analyzing my competitions. Also, I think I'm lucky now to have a great training group at home. I've already trained with other people this year in surfski, marathon, or life saving. And I have some young people from my club who were too young maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And now they are a bit older and they are going fast, and it's always really cool to train with them. And I also still have a few older members of the club who are still in really good shape and always in a good mood on the water. So I'm lucky for that. Also, I have a few people who help me in my preparation, whether it is physiological, tactical, or technical. And they are always available for me when I need to talk or ask a question about something. So I'm lucky for that too. And this year was the first year I competed in marathon races. And I think it was a real bonus for me to do this Europeans and World Champs in marathon, because this year the race was 34 kilometers and the effort time at the race was close to the one in marathon. So I knew how hard I had to paddle not to die during the race. And then I also think that I had a bit of luck this day. Everything went well for me. I had no problem at the start. I was able to read the waves well, and I was in a great shape. So I think everything helped me, and I'm not going to complain about that.
With 2 out of 3 spots on the overall men's podium this year going to Europeans, it is clear that the European surfski scene is well equipped to challenge the more established scenes in Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. What do you think has helped the European surfski scene develop so well?
We have always admired the Australians and South Africans in ocean racing, and we may have an extra motivation maybe to do as well as them on the water. Also, I think that the Euro Challenge race, which is now maybe the most renowned race in Europe, allows us to compete against each other one more time in the year with a high-level field. And now people from all over the world come to this race, and I think it's helped to improve. And above all, seeing Gordon succeed last year, even we thought it was possible to beat Australian and South African, to see it in real life is not the same thing.
Yeah, Pierre's consistency in his training group has clearly been a big part in this rise to the top. And it's really cool that he's dragging up these young paddlers as well with him.
That's definitely one of those themes that we hear so frequently from the top paddlers, isn't it? And so exciting to see the youth and it sounds like from what he's saying that some of those younger paddlers are able to challenge him, at least in some of the training sessions, which is very exciting for the future of the sport. I hadn't actually realized that it was his first year competing in marathon. Obviously, I was really impressed with how he has done in marathon this year. But yeah, for his first year actually competing in marathon, wow.
Yeah, that's really impressive, isn't it? Actually, the French paddling system is really quite impressive. They've got top paddlers in all disciplines.
Yeah. And an interesting point, there has been, I think, some discussion about the length of the race being 34 kilometers, right? And Pierre saying that potentially was advantageous to him since he did focus on marathon this year. He had the stamina for the longer distance. He knew how to pace himself. It's really hard to get out front from the beginning and then just hold that position, isn't it?
Yeah, it was interesting that he did lose a few places, he said, in the middle, but then, he did have the stamina to pull back at the end. So that was once he got used to sort of the new conditions after the Schlanger Boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Next up, we are hugely privileged to have the winner of the junior men's category, Sam Mocke. This is quite exciting for us because at just 16 years of age, I don't believe that Sam will have done many interviews. So his podcast debut is here.
It is. And, equally, I don't think many 16-year-olds have multiple junior world championship titles under their belt. And he's just won his second. Almost as impressive as debuting on Paddlecast.
Oh, yeah, no, that will be straight to the top of his Instagram bio, I'm sure.
So let's hear from Sam.
Sam, tell us about your race. Did everything go how you expected, or were there any surprises?
My race plan was to race the seniors and then see where I came in the juniors. So I ended up racing the seniors for the first kilometer. I was like top 4 and then, slowly but surely dropped down. But that did set me up for the rest of the race.
Did you know you were in the lead, or was it difficult to differentiate between the different age categories once you were out on the water?
I really targeted the start. That was kind of my race plan, so that I could see if any juniors were coming past me. Because obviously, yes, it is hard to differentiate between the different age categories. But if you're in front, you can definitely see when someone is coming past you, and then you can try and tell, is that a junior, if I must race or if I must go a little bit harder. So yeah, I think everything did go to plan. Towards the end, I started dying a little bit. So maybe I could have saved myself a little bit more. But yeah.
I'm sure your family has a big influence on your paddling with success across multiple generations. But who are some of the paddlers you look up to as role models, from your family or otherwise?
Yaps has always raced the way I want to race. His kind of strategy for most races is get to the front or die trying. That's kind of how I wanted to how I want to go about things, and not to get bullied and to just dominate. Basically, that's what he used to do. So Yaps is a big one, but all the seniors in Cape Town, Kenny, Mark, Nick, they all train with us. We all train together, so they are big role models. But if you want to look in terms of someone who's famous famous in the paddling world, obviously these oaks are all super well known, but I think a Clint Robinson is kind of who I want to sort of become when I'm older. He's well developed around life saving as well. Life saving is one of his biggest things that he did, and I quite enjoy it. He won most of the paddling races he did, got an Olympic gold. So Clint Robinson is definitely one of my bigger role models.
You are based in Cape Town. What's the junior scene like there? Tell us about your training group.
In Cape Town and in the Orca squad, there are lots and lots and lots of juniors. It's fun because you can have all of these people that you can talk to and chat with and race with. Because obviously, if it was just like me and then a whole bunch of seniors, it gets so charred and you don't really want to paddle. you can race against them, but then also like you enjoy training because we all kind of friends, so we all enjoy each other's presence. So it definitely makes training a lot easier when you know you're gonna go there and you're gonna chat with people and you're gonna have a little bit of banter. The squad that we are in, I mean, it's fun. Look, I gotta say, like training is fun for me. Like the Cape Town scene is so great because every Tuesday and every Friday we have a race, and it is crazy. My dad actually pointed this out because he's kind of the MC at the Sea Dog. The top 5 were all world champs. So that just I think it shows why the Cape Town caliber is so high because you're racing against literally world champs, the best people in the world.
You're still very early in your paddling career and doing very well. What's next for you? And are there any other sports competing for your attention?
I think I definitely want to go to the Olympics. I think my sprinting is definitely a strong side of my paddling. So like in the Surfski, I think my long distance is kind of what kills me, but my sprints save me. So my speed actually saves me because then I can get up there in the beginning and then I don't get drowned out. But so I definitely want to be going to the Olympics. If I can make it to the 2028 Olympics, that would be amazing. And I would love to do that. But I think definitely a better goal for me would be the 2032 Brisbane Olympics. I think that's definitely on the cards for me. I definitely want to start transitioning into more of a sprint-based training session. Any other sports competing for my attention? So I play a lot of water polo. That is like I think I actually play more water polo than I paddle. It's like I think we train like 5 days a week if you include matches, and then in the summer in the first term we play like 2 matches a week, train every other day. So, but it actually helps me. I think it keeps my fitness up. It's good cross training. You definitely work a lot playing water polo and life saving as well. But those two are kind of like crisscrossed into each other, life saving and paddling. But yeah, because my paddling training helps with my life saving, and then the water polo helps with the swimming part of the life saving. And I don't really shark running, so we don't really do the beach stuff for the life saving. But yeah, so I swim in water polo, paddle in paddling, and then that kind of saves my life saving. But yeah, thank you so much for having me.
That was really cool to hear from Sam. He is such an impressive young paddler. I think that attitude of racing the seniors will probably take him far.
Yeah, I think it will, even if some of them are looking around going, who's this lighty? But when they see his name on the side of a boat, they'll probably give him a bit more respect.
I am really excited to hear that he has Olympic ambitions, which is actually something that we heard from Kira a few months ago. I don't know how much she is thinking about that right now. I hope it's still something in her future. But yeah, 2032, watch out for Sam.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting that if we're still talking about life saving getting into the Brisbane Olympics, and both Sam and Kira may have that option as well as the sprinting. If you've got 2 bites at the cherry, really, they're probably going to be better off in the sprint. But I wouldn't rule either of them out for the life saving.
Yeah, that's a great point. Or both. Who knows how the how the team and the schedule is going to work out.
Can you imagine that? Yeah.
No, that would be tough.
Yeah, it would. What I also found really interesting was the 2 races each week. One is the time trial on the Flay, and the other is Sea Dog on a Friday night. We actually did the time trial on the Tuesday at Peninsula Canoe Club, and it really is rammed with talent. Ron Benjano, David Mocke, Jasper Mocke, Dom Notton, we're all just up there, and we were just clinging on. in the big group at the start, and then we ended up in the second group, and we were just we were clinging on there. But Sam is right of a big junior scene there. When we got on the water, and we were just being like chatted to by these 6-year-olds in their guppies, and like, oh, what time are you gonna do? Like, what are you oaks gonna do? And we're just like, hang on a minute here, like you pipe down, young'un. And they weren't backing down.
I can picture the scene.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think we have to acknowledge too, of course, we talk about David and Jasper Mocke, but also Sam's mom, Nikki Mocke, is another world champion and Olympian. She represented South Africa at the 2008 Olympics in Beijing in K4. So yeah, he's definitely got the family influence there to take him really as far as he wants to go, which it sounds like is pretty far.
Oh yeah, it sounds like if he sets his mind to it, he could do a lot.
Well, should we move on to our final interview, saving the 4-time world champion for last?
Yeah, the best till last, eh?
I mean, we don't necessarily want to say the best, but
he does have four
world champion titles.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
Sam and Mocke were talking about GOAT status the other day. So
I think a lot of people are talking about GOAT status for Cory. He's got more world champion. He already had more world champion titles than anyone else, and now he's got 2 more than anyone else.
Yeah. What about if you included the unofficial Molokai World Championships? He's still not leading that one, is he? I think Oscar's still leading that one.
Yep, Oscar still has that locked down. So it depends how you count. But hey, Cory still has plenty of racing years left. We hear it reported that he is not planning to retire, and good on him. He's got to beat Oscar's records. He's still got more time.
Well, he said 10 more years.
I love it. So here is our chat with Cory Hill.
Can you talk us through your race plan and its execution?
I was really not concerned about the start. We come from a clubby background here, surf lifesaving, so I just knew you've just got to get in clean. I don't want to be leading that first bit, and the same goes for at the doctor. A lot of people just get so, the gun goes and the race starts, and if you're not leading at the first couple of meters, you're not going to win, but it's quite often not the case. You've got 2 hours of paddling ahead of you, 34K even on a bonkers day with downwind. It's still a good 2-hour race. And I just knew that until we get to the wind, I just wanted to be thereabouts, really use other people's energy. Wash ride, as it goes, a boat came through the field to sort of film those front guys, and that first 2Ks was very gentlemanly. So by the time I did get to that first buoy at 2 kilometres in, that's when the race sort of starts. You'd sort of figured a little bit out by then, but it was more or less a warm-up. Build the way through the field. Don't get too stressed. You still have to be there, don't get me wrong. But quite often I say you can't win it in that first half, but you can definitely lose it in that first half. So you've just got to be really mindful of how you feel. There's a lot of energy in leading, I guess, because there's a lot of stress involved with not knowing where the rest of the field are. So I just wanted to really sit back, monitor, and take it from there.
Seeing you coming into the finish line, you looked very relaxed and walking up that beach. When did you know you had won?
It's really interesting, these races where we start behind the girls, because you quite often chew up a few of them early on. But gradually, as you start passing the top 10 girls, they're very good. So as you're passing them, it's taking a little bit longer to actually, 1, come up onto them, and 2, pass them. So you start questioning yourself. For instance, is that paddler ABC in the men's who's just having a little bit of a bad spell, or is it one of the girls? So, there's quite a few NKs, quite a few fens, and if you put a craft to an athlete, that could have been realistically any one of the boys or girls. So it was really confusing. I felt like I knew that I was in the lead, with 10K to go, and I knew that I hadn't missed much opportunity with what the ocean was presenting. So I thought that I'd won, but you can just never discount a line, an alley, you know, who's not missed a run on the inside that I didn't even know about. Or for me, it was really, you know, Hanks from Durban. Did he take a outer line or an inner line? Usually we are like right next to each other in these races. Or there's plenty of other people that I could mention to sort of go like, have they just come through the field without me seeing them, essentially. So up until finishing, I did just want to not claim it, more or less. Look like a complete fool. Had an idea, but still wanted to ask that question first to say, can I be excited or not? Not that I'd be disappointed with not winning, but don't want to cross the line and claim a fourth, for instance. So, yeah.
Having 3 world titles already, we knew you were a top contender for another title, but you had a health scare just a few weeks ago, so it didn't feel like you were necessarily guaranteed this win. How did you approach the final 3 weeks leading into the race? Can you talk us through your mindset after getting discharged from hospital leading up to flying to Durban? Did you have a short time trial that you were still hitting the right numbers on? How else do you know you're in the ballpark for form?
Yeah, so I guess after being discharged from hospital, the only concern was, what was it? So it happened Tuesday night. Thursday, discharged in the water on Friday, essentially, and trained well, I guess. You know, on the way home, we had a pretty big nor'easter, and I paddled with Mackenzie Hynard. So he's got a podium at a World Championships in the past, and Dylan Askew. So paddling with people, and on the way home, I remember the session, it was about 3 or 4 Ks hard on the way home with pretty good wind. But it was like 313s, 314s on the way home. And I went, well, I haven't lost anything. I've still got it. So I knew the paddling wasn't going to be a problem. It was more just passing these health tests. So had a blood test the following day after being discharged to make sure it wasn't any abnormalities there. Had a ultrasound on the neck to make sure there was no, essentially, blood clots that might move to the brain a couple of weeks later. Met with a neurologist and met with the cardiologist twice, had the scan on the heart, all that sort of thing, and everything came back clear. So, you know, after ruling everything out, you're sort of back to the basics of, you know, bread and butter sessions and making sure that you're preparing as well as you can. So, yeah, everything went well from there.
You've said you're interested in hearing what people say you have to win next. I'm going to challenge you to do it in the United Kingdom. So take your pick. We have some great ocean racing, or could I even tempt you on a 200k ultra? I'll drive.
Yeah, I do like, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek really when I sort of say, people have said in the past, you haven't won this race before, or you haven't won that race before. So, you know, it all started back in Molokai 2015, where, again, I would have been happy with just that one win. You know, it was a podium with myself, Hank and Clint. So at that stage, I thought, you know, I've made it in Surfski. I'm happy with my career. So to go on and do anything after that was fantastic. But after that race, there was commentary about, you know, those two were fighting each other out at sea, and I snuck up on the inside. So they didn't know I was there. I think that was more so from, I'd heard that Clint said, oh, this is what happened and that sort of thing. So the next one was, oh, but you haven't won a World Championships. So later on in that year, I was actually fortunate enough to win in Tahiti, a World Championships. And then a lot of Aussies were saying, oh, you've got to win the Doctor. And I, again, was fortunate enough to paddle well enough to win a Doctor. But then there's always people saying, oh, you've got to win in South Africa. Oh, you haven't won in the US yet, or you haven't won in Spain or Europe or something like this. So it's always been this little battle of not proving yourself, but just proving to myself, I guess, that you can do it anywhere on any sort of day.
I cannot wait to see what Cory does next. You can argue his GOAT status versus Oscar Chalupsky, but at least at this current moment, I don't think anyone will disagree that he is at least the Surfski greatest of his generation.
We've talked a lot about the young talent who raced in Durban, and my biggest question is who, if anyone, will be able to stop Cory from winning in the future? In 7 of the last 9 editions of the World Championships, Cory has been on the podium. I think we're going to see some epic battles in the coming years, with challenges to Cory coming definitely from Europe and from paddlers that are more than 10 years his junior. It's going to be really interesting.
It sounded like Cory might be looking to race some more non-Surfski events as well. He did race the Sella Descent for the first time this year with his friend, the Olympian Riley Fitzsimmons.
I think that Cory is at that point in his career where he has already done most of the big Surfski events. And he was just saying he's proven himself again and again. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's now casting a wider net, much like he did this year with the Sella Descent. He'll be thinking about bucket list races he wants to do while he's still at peak fitness. I'm just hoping that some of Cory's list overlaps with mine, because it would be great to actually be at some races where I'm on the same start line as him.
So we have talked a lot about Durban because, of course, there is a lot to talk about. It's a World Championships. It's a major, major event, and it was pretty epic. But there have been a number of other very cool events that we have not covered very much happening over the last couple of weeks.
We've had the Kromlovsky in Czechia. Really cool race down the river, and very nice race. Big crowds. We'll put the link to that in the description. Paddle games happened in the Balearics, Spain, last week. Really cool new format of racing all over social media. We had the Alabama 650. Very cool 650 miles of racing in Alabama, America. And coming up, we've also got, as this episode airs, we've got the Pete Marlin Surfski race in South Africa. Next weekend is the 20 Beaches in Australia. So we'll put all the links to these in the description of the show notes for you to go and check out.
Yes. And of course, the Liffey, which we previewed with Jenny Egan-Simmons. And I did share a few updates on that on the Paddle Daily social media accounts. But that was some great racing. When we previewed it with Jenny, we didn't have the start list, and it got a lot more exciting, I have to say, by the time the actual start list was finalized. So that was very cool. You can see those results saved on Paddle Daily. But some big names came over.
Yeah, some big names. I'd love to shout out John O'Grady and Jason Graham, who got bronze medal. And also a special shout out to the last place finishers. Can you guess who it is? Do you know who it is, Betsy?
I don't know.
The European junior 1,000-meter record holders, Luke Harding and Magnus Gregory, finished in last place on the Liffey Descent. And I will send you a picture of why, and I'll send you a picture of them crossing the finish line to include in the show.
All right. Well, it'll be here when you hear and watch.
And for anyone listening and not watching, they put a pretty big hole in the boat and finished as a submarine.
Well, with that, I think that's all we've got for this episode of Paddlecast. We are still looking for Paddlecast sponsors, so please do reach out to us if you're interested in sponsoring Paddlecast. And until next time, see you on the water.
See you on the water.